Okay, salud.
There we go. Salute. Hi. I am Freddy Rodriguez.
And I'm Wilmer Valderrama.
We are in the Dos Amigos podcast.
Yes,
Here we are.
Available everywhere you get your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for everyone who's been subscribing and downloading. It's so amazing that you all have been looking for us everywhere else that we are available, and just enjoying these conversations. You know, the idea of this podcast was to kind of come together, reflect, look ahead, but also be present and enjoying our friendship and and the life that we've lived, you know, and the legacy we're leaving behind. I think the idea of Dos Amigos was really one of just saying, hey, Freddy, I've been seeing you. I see you, and I can't wait to continue to see you. You know, and I think that's kind of the point of this. And I think in this episode, you know, we wanted to kind of demystify, you know, some of these things, you know, that, you know, multi-generationally we've been passed down, you know. I know mental health is a big subject, you know, it's something that a lot of people, you know, struggle with today. And, you know, perhaps some of our listeners in this very moment are going through a really difficult time.
Yeah.
So we thought it'd be cool to just say, hey, you know, let's reflect on some of the things that we do for ourselves, you know, some of the things that, you know, that has gotten us through the darkness, you know, our jobs, this career could be so you know, so tough, you know, rejection and the negativity you can be surrounded by, you know, could be not just scary, but could also really be daunting. It's hard to find the path, you know, when you enter in these zones. And how do you keep yourself sane? How do you keep priority as the guiding light? And, you know, how do you protect yourself in all these ways? And we had to do things, right? We had to kind of figure out what are these things that you treat, you know, yourself to, you know, and, you know, I'll start with, you know, my version of it. I started this thing called my hour a day. That if in 24 hours you didn't have 1 hour for yourself, then what did you do for yourself today?
Right.
In other words, like, did today match tomorrow, or did it match yesterday? Like, how do you, what was Tuesday different than Wednesday? And it's in that hour sometimes when we're in our daily routines, going to work, you know, getting on the same freeway, you know, making the similar phone calls, and then getting home and having a version of the dinner we had before. You know, what about that day made you remember it?
Yeah.
You know, in that hour that I would afford myself. Could be in the form of fitness, right? Which I like to work out, listen to loud music, and really get in the mood, and and you know, and sing out loud. And you know, it could be a swim, it could be a walk, it could be a meditation, it could be reading a chapter of your favorite book. You know, it could be, you know, watching an episode of something. You know, and I think that the idea was that my hour a day kind of inspired us all to kind of take charge, you know, and break the patterns of our daily lives, you know, and find that. But do you have something like that? Do you have something like a, you know, like my hour a day? But, you know, what do you do for yourself when it comes to like, oh, I want to recenter again, I want to recharge?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I went and I took an intensive, it's called TM, Transcendental Meditation course. And it was a 3-day course where they teach you how to meditate. They give you a mantra, you know, and it really helped me in so many different ways. It helped me get centered. You know, I think it's really normal in our industry for us to get anxious, right? You know, for anxiety to be so prevalent in our industry and in life, right? That's, you know, obviously a byproduct of stress, right? And so I learned how to do that, and it also helped me in my acting as well. You know, I remember one time, I think we said this in the other episode, Andy Garcia gave me some good advice. He said, just stay loose, man. Just stay loose. Sometimes it's hard to stay loose, you know, when you're tense, when you're stressed.
Stakes are high.
Yeah, stakes are high, right? You don't know if other people on set are disturbing your peace. You know, there's a multitude of different elements that could affect that, and thus I feel could affect your performance, you know. And I found that meditation really helped me get centered and helped me get focused enough that if any of that tried to come into my space, I had the tools to be able to deflect from that. And even in my regular life, just whatever stresses or anxieties we're going through, it just a little bit of that, a few times a day really helps combat that.
So, question. So there's so many forms of meditation, and I encourage everyone to find their anthem. Right, like go out there and find all different versions of meditation and see which one speaks to you, which one centers you in ways that you never thought you could be before. But for you, what is that? Do you mind talking a little bit about what is the version of meditation you do?
It's 20 minutes 2 times a day.
Oh, 2 times a day.
2 times a day, yeah.
Is there specifically morning and evening, or?
I tend to do it, yeah. It's funny because the perception is that if you meditate, it makes you sleepy, but it actually gives you some energy. And so they encourage you to do it early in order for you to take advantage of that energy, right? And for you not to do it like right before bed because they think you'd be up. So for me, it's a combination of that, some prayer, in the mornings, some reading. But, you have to equip yourself with the tools, right? In whatever you do, whatever it is, whatever you're dealing with in your life, right? You always need a set of tools that's going to help you get through it.
Right.
What about you? What's the hour a day? What
for me?
Yeah, is it the same every single day, or is it?
Well, it depends because I have forfeited my lunch, which used to be my 45 minutes of just like shutting it down, either closing my eyes or reading or whatever I had to do. I had to forfeit it to Zoom meetings because I'm just running out of hours of the day to do all my business stuff. But I will say my hour day starts really early. I'm the guy who gets up at 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I'll be in the gym at 4:30, and that gives me actually a good hour and 45 minutes.
Even if you get to bed late, you're getting up at 4 in the morning?
I have to do it.
Wow.
I have to do it. I have to just walk. I walk through the kitchen, out through the kitchen door. I step down. I walk towards my gym outside in the open. The sky's full of stars. The air is crisp, cold, right? Yeah. The grass is still icy. And then eventually you make it into, the serenity of the night. And then you make it into the gym. You make it into the gym, you turn up your music, and then you stretch. Yeah. Just you. And at times, my trainer at the time, obviously, come in and at 4:30 in the morning, like meet me there in the morning, would do it, and there'd be times where I'd just be there by myself, 4:30 in the morning, just like nothing new, you can't hear a sound. Right. At that time. Occasionally you cross a couple of coyotes, on your way to the gym. But I walk in there and I will stretch, I will warm up, and then I would just turn the music to something that will make me happy. Like I'll do some Mark Anthony songs, or I'll do like some really lively, loud music, and then that would put me in that mood, and then that really, really would help. It would set up this tone. So then I go from there, take a shower, get in the car, and then traffic didn't bother me. Then I would just go get to the 405, eventually get down to where we shoot NCIS, and then I'd had such a running start. A lot of my co-stars we just had woken up, and rolling right into set.
You're already warmed up.
2.5 hours going, and I walk in unknowingly optimistic.
Are you a breakfast guy? Are you a coffee guy?
I love breakfast. Sometimes I've had to do programs where I'm intermittent fasting, but for the most part, I like to have my breakfast in the morning.
Do you do it before or after the workout?
I do it after.
Yeah.
I do it after because, I like to kind of do a little bit of a fast workout. Feel like I'm burning more. I'm reaching from what's in there. And then, and then I'll just have a shake, or I'll have a breakfast right away, and I get to work, and and I'll just eat when I have to eat. But then once you start, man. Like you know how it is. Once you get to set, you're on the whole time, and just bringing it. And each scene could be 3 pages. You know how it works. But that really helps me. Just kind of getting a running start at it. If I'm traveling somewhere, when I'm in the plane, I'll find a way to just do some. You guys can go to any of your streaming music devices and go look for brown noise.
Brown noise.
I know it sounds funny because you're not brown.
Right.
But brown noise is like this deep, sound. It's like a white noise that people use to sleep in sometimes, but the brown noise is so deep. It has like this really bassy kind of structure, and as soon as it goes on, it almost feels like the wound of a mother, and you're just sleeping in there, and like that's one way to really turn it off.
Yeah.
Once that brown noise is playing in your heart and in your mind, you're not thinking about anything else.
Right.
Nothing outside, nothing inside. Your mind is able to kind of slow it down. You're focusing on the sound, and then at that very moment, you're able to let go a little bit. The tense on your shoulders go away. The quick thinking slows down, and that really helps. But brown noise is an interesting one. I also sleep with brown noise because it's just so relaxing.
Yeah, it's quieting the brain.
Do you sleep with a noisemaker at all?
I do. Yeah,
it's tough. I've been to hotel rooms where I'm like, it's too quiet in here.
Yeah, I have to. If you go on YouTube and you put like thunderstorm black screen, there's like 12 hours worth of stuff like that on YouTube.
Do you listen to storms?
Yeah, all night.
That's your thing?
All night, yeah. But with a black screen, so it's just the sound of the storm in the back. Yeah, but I need something like that.
When did you realize that? What was that moment? What was that thing? What was that experience that made you think or made you realize that you really needed to have this structure of meditation and prayer?
I think that, going through our business and going through the stresses of it, eventually it starts to get to you, It starts to affect you and affect your mental health. And, when you're young and then you're in your 20s, you think you're resilient to everything, right? And then all of a sudden you start to get older and you start to go, I should probably start doing something about this. And then I had my pop passed away. I had a couple of deaths in the family, and that really like rocks you, rocks your core.
Sure.
And then you start to seek out ways to deal with it. Especially in our industry, right? It's so easy to turn to other things as opposed to meditation or prayer or whatever. It's really easy to start diving into the substance stuff. It's never been my thing, but
sure. But in our profession, it's a tough card. Being dealt that card is tricky. Nobody equips you with this industry. In most careers, you do the work, you show up, you put in your hours, you go home. Right? You get paid hourly, or you get paid a yearly rate, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But in our profession, it's so much uncertainty. You don't know when your next job is going to be, and if a show ends, you got to get a new one, figure out what that is, and you hope it's something that can hopefully pay the road for the rest of your career, but it's tough. I mean, there's some high pressures that comes with what we do.
Yeah, it does a number on your nervous system,
Yeah.
And so you have to really start paying attention to those things.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you start to realize that, when you're younger, you think you're Superman. And you don't pay attention to any of that stuff.
Right.
But whether it's that or like even therapy, as we continue this conversation about Latinos and mental health, therapy is something that Latinos, and look, and I'm speaking on my own behalf, right? Like, I feel like within our culture is not really something that's at the forefront or it's talked about or anything like that.
No, we always put a little dirt on it,
Put a little dirt on it,
But before we dive into this multi-generational shedding of the patterns, I want to acknowledge our third amigo here is, Josh Sukan. Josh, in the name of, having this be our Zen moment, we decided that maybe Josh can help us with a mocktail.
A mocktail. Yeah.
Something that can bring our senses up to a different level.
Oh, yeah.
Josh, what did you make for us today?
Today we're going to make a mint tarragon cucumber, just a refreshing kind of spa water cooler.
Yeah.
Something to kind of get the mind right, set the tone. Gonna add a little bit of Japanese citrus in there also, sudachi. Just give it a little little tanginess to it.
Very good. That sounds great. Sounds like we should meditate after that.
Yeah, we should be in the sauna.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's awesome. I can't wait to taste it. But yeah, man.
But speaking of multi-generational tools, we've never been. I don't think I can speak for myself. I don't think we've been ever given tools on how to actually cope.
Right.
How to actually not just cope, but like how do we process?
Yeah.
How do we process trauma?
Yeah.
How do we endure it? You know, how do we get through it? And then most importantly, how do we set up ourselves for success? You know, would you agree that that's something that it's hard, you know, in our culture somehow, that passed to us somehow?
I just think that in our culture, we're taught to suppress trauma, suppress feelings, suppress and keep your head down and keep moving forward, right? But what you start to learn as you get older is that, you know, it's like a pressure cooker, right? Like you suppress, eventually it's gonna have to come out somewhere, right? It's gonna seep through the holes somehow.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay. Even the collar feels like you took me to a Japanese garden.
Sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Look at that. Hey, salud. Wow.
Salud, brother.
By the way, the presentation on this thing.
Yeah. Look at this.
The eyes you chose to pay a little attention to this stuff. You know, it's so important to see
the
this,
size of
know?
the cubes.
The last episode, Josh served a single cube margarita. Now he's made this beautiful
yeah, it's delicious
drink that has it's a green drink. And what is this, mint?
Yeah, mint on the
Is
top
that mint?
there. It has mint and tarragon and sudachi, which is a Japanese citrus, cucumber inside of there. Like I say, just a spa water.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but that's delicious.
Oh my Josh. This is pretty good. This is damn good. Thank you. Very refreshing. Picking it back up on multi-generational inheritance. I have discovered myself through my own life and through my parents. I never saw my dad process a bad day. I never saw my mom complain about what it could have been.
Yeah.
They just kept looking ahead. They kept driving forward, ignoring the wounds and ignoring the scars that they had from the sacrifices they undeniably had to make.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, specifically for us who are, you know, sons who are very aware of the household and what's happening and what our responsibility would be. You know, it's hard not to be aware of some of the turmoil, some of the pain, and some of the stress, you know, some of the trauma that your mom or your dad might be carrying as you become an adult.
Yeah.
You know, do you feel like do you ever saw your parents like taking a beat or going for a walk or you know, it was just like...
Absolutely not.
Right.
No, you know, I think that both of our parents came from other places than the United States, and their lives sort of the survival mechanism, right? And that's part of the survival mechanism. It's everything you just said. You just put your head down and you look forward, and all the stuff you just listed, and you survive. You know, you put the blinders on and you survive. However, like I was saying earlier, I feel like eventually you're suppressing all the stuff that you're going through, right? All the trauma that you've experienced, and eventually it has to come out some way, somehow.
Yeah.
In what, I don't know what form. I don't know. You know, people sometimes channel that into alcoholism. Sometimes people channel that into drugs. Sometimes
it manifests as in projections onto your family and to your kids. You know, your kids bear, you know, some of that sadness, some of that depression, some of that inner, you know, anger. It's so important to, you know, for us, as we kind of hold the baton in this next phase of our generation, to kind of pass down to the next version of ourselves. Yeah. You know, better tools to figure out that if you're gonna continue to carry this torch, you know, you gotta find some outlets. You know, you have to let some things go. Yeah. And and look, by all means, we're not ever advertising here that we're the Zen masters. I mean, like we have to carry stress. We were actors, right? Like actors have to really kind of, unfortunately, go job for job, and even though this is our careers and this is what we do, their level of inconsistency is not like you get in a doctor's office and you can work there for 10 years. That's just not how it works.
Right.
Right? Like you can do a movie this summer, you may not get another one until next winter or the following winter, a year and a half from that winter,
Yeah.
You get a TV show nobody saw, it got canceled 3 episodes in, and like so there's a lot of uncertainty that's distressful. And then you become an adult.
Yeah.
Right? And then you have a family. And then you have kids. But this is what you do. You're an actor, and I reflected on that, and then I flipped the coin. I said, wow, our parents did what they could, and they did what they had to. What would you say to that next generation? What would you say to the next version of all of us? That says, oh, Latinos, when it comes to mental health, they just put some dirt on it, which is what I was saying earlier. What would you say to that?
I think that it's important to find what that outlet is to let out whatever it is you're suppressing, right? Whatever anger, whatever trauma it is you're suppressing, because otherwise it will come out. It's like putting a Band-Aid, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna bleed somewhere.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be bleeding on your spouse or
right.
or someone that you really love. And I feel like our culture in particular are not encouraged to do that,
right.
And I'm not sitting here as like an advocate for like therapy, for example,
right.
But like whatever that thing is,
Yeah.
is it prayer? Is it meditation? Is it waking up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
and putting on brown noise and working out and like whatever that thing is?
Yeah.
Because I feel like we're not taught that there should be a thing. It's just put your head down, get to work, clock in, clock out, come home, provide for your family. It's a bit of a hamster wheel a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I get it, right? Like you said, you get older, you have kids, you have a family, you're just trying to survive, you're just trying to do your thing. So I understand, but
yeah, and it's also, this goes beyond our culture too, to your point. I mean, there's so many cultures out there that have had to, keep their head down and keep digging, and this goes for anyone. It doesn't matter if you're white, if you're black, if you're brown, if you're Asian, it doesn't matter. We all carry certain multi-generational burdens, that we feel we have to kind of continue to carry. And that doesn't mean you ever need to forget what and who you are and what it took for you to become what you are. It just feels like this is a moment where you can allow yourself to love yourself a little harder than before. Just love yourself a little harder. You need to take a nap? Take a nap.
Right.
Right? Simple. It's like simple. It's like if we can make it obtainable, make it obtainable. And I think about also, our ability to pass down to the next generation the tools they need to continue to, outlive tyranny. To continue to move forward and disrupt and build. And if we're gonna go and disrupt and build a new marketable, equitable place for our culture, we're gonna have to take care of some things, because we're gonna continue to take some hits on the way there.
Right.
You talk about, projection, and it's so real, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of those things. I mean, in this subject, in this episode, I think you and I have lived long enough. We have so many incredible people in our lives, but we also lost so many people in our lives. To depression, to stress, to the complicity of not meeting expectations to yourself or to others, or, there's just so much about depression that is just scary, and especially in the artist community.
Right.
Man, it's a torture community. It's a sad community. It's a broken community that defines light and art. And when art is diluted or fractured by an industry that's that has to make money, it's hard for you to continue to enjoy it. And I've lost a lot of friends to unfortunate suicides.
Yeah, same.
drug addictions, and it's really, really scary.
Yeah, because they have no place to direct that whatever it is that's happening inside. Did you find your parents ever had some place to direct that where they could release that?
My mom never has. She wears it like the baddest woman alive. There are times when I've seen her cry, and when she cries, she lets some of all of that stuff out. You can tell it's like 30, 40 years of things that just like come out in one cry. And then she doesn't cry for like another 10 years. My mom is, at eyesight, the strongest woman I've ever met in my life. But that doesn't mean she's not putting it together inside of her every day.
Right.
Trying to like get it to a happier place.
And doesn't wear it on her sleeve or show
You would never know.
her.
You would never know, right? And I would say that my daughter has definitely brought new sunshine into her house.
Oh, yeah.
And the same thing with my dad.
Yeah.
But they all have things that they just, I don't know if they'll ever be able to say out loud how they feel, whether they're sad or not. And I mean, I think my dad in his older age, I think he's definitely a lot softer now. And, he cries a lot easier, and he cries of happiness. He cries of, all these things. But yeah, I don't think they have either, and I think it's a pattern, right? It's like, that's the thing, it's a pattern that happens in our lives.
So do you feel that you've broken that pattern in your generation?
I think I have. I'm more conscious, I mean, look, the way we talk to each other, right? Yeah. There's times where you call me, I'm like, hey, I just want to make sure, right? I want to make sure that, you knew kind of how I meant when I send you that text.
Yeah.
Right? Like, our parents would never do that. They're like, take it or leave it and see how it comes back,
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're so much more aware of the atmosphere and the harmony that you create in your life. And like, you and I never had an uncomfortable situation. We've never had a situation where we're like, it has to get to like not talking. Like, why? Like, I can't even fathom not talking to Freddy. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? Like, we don't have the stubbornness to say like, I'll wait until he calls me.
Yeah.
Like, no. Either I call you first, you call me first, and we squash whatever is going to squash. And we've never had to, by the way, just for the record, we've never had to squash anything.
Yeah.
But you've always been an incredibly supportive friend.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man. And same. And I'm really happy that we're using this platform to talk about this. You have no idea how many times I've had this same conversation behind the scenes with people who don't feel comfortable talking about it, don't feel comfortable bringing that subject matter on. I've I can't begin to tell you how many people I've come across, whether it's people I'm close to or not, who are just in so much pain.
Right.
They're just in so much pain, and that pain continues to bleed in places where it shouldn't.
Right.
And then when I begin to have these conversations about healing, they look at me like I'm crazy sometimes, or like I'm presenting some sort of new agey thing, I had a friend of mine who's like, "Oh man, it's just some Hollywood shit, man." I'm like, "No, dude, it's not Hollywood shit, man. It's you're going through some stuff, and you have to heal from it, And that's like the concept of having to heal from it is like it's foreign, Yeah.
No, it's very real. It's very real.
Yeah.
Well, look, I feel happy that we can have a platform to just be vulnerable and say, hey, we don't have all the answers here. We're not supposed to have all the answers here. But we at the very least can create a space where we can all just say it out loud. Just say that like we don't have it all together sometimes, and that we're trying to be strong and trying to be happy with where we live and with the few years that we may have left in this earth. We got to make the most of it, So,
absolutely,
for everyone who's listening and everyone who's out there at home, feeling and wondering if there's anyone out there that would understand or feels the way you do, you're understood. There is a world, there is a place, and we share it all together. And You'll be surprised how many people out there are willing to not just pick up the phone, but be there for you. So if you're in a dark place and you're going to something and this episode finds you, please know that there's hotlines, there's friends, there's family members you haven't called. And you're not alone in that feeling.
Yeah, and don't allow how you've been brought up dictate the moves that you make now in order to get help, right?
Yeah.
I've run into that so many times, where people are like, well, that's not how my parents did it. That's not how my grandparents did it. Well, this is a different time and a different generation,
Yeah, and there's nothing more courageous than saying how you feel.
Yeah.
It takes real bravery, a real courage to just speak out loud and say, I'm not okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's no strength in like swallowing it.
Yeah.
The strength really comes from you taking its power by actually invoking it out loud. Once it leaves your mouth, it leaves your body.
Yeah.
So the more you can express it, the faster you can get to healing. And anyway, I hope this episode helped you guys. And I want to thank Josh, for giving us this very sand,
delicious
drink,
mocktail.
really delicious drink. And Josh, really appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
And this is Those Amigos. I am Wilmer Valderrama.
I am Freddy Rodriguez, and we are signing off.
Peace.